Hello, my loves. A little bit of a change of pace today. Today, I'm going to be speaking to those of you who want to start a new business. This is something that I've done a lot of over the years, and I'm right in the thick of it now as I'm launching different businesses and looking to the next few months and the things that I'm going to be launching. And I love it. I love launching businesses. It's in my blood. And it's something that I'm very good at. And as I sit here thinking about why I'm good at this, it's because I tend to really know my market and I tend to see the gaps in the market. And so if you are looking at going into business, there's a couple of things that I do naturally that I think if I share with you, it's going to save you a little bit of time and energy and frustration. I know for me that the businesses that I've had that have had the most success have been the businesses that have been born out of frustration because I've been engaged with a service or a product or something like that, and it just hasn't met my expectations. And it's usually something that I've looked for over and over again and just couldn't find what I was after. And so I created it. And one of the things that I created, I remember one of my first online fitness businesses, everybody was selling weight loss online fitness programs. I had a business called Glow Women's Fitness Online where I worked with only women and I had online fitness programs. This is before apps, before any of those things. And it was kind of a Gen Pop thing, I would say. And then Michelle Bridges in Australia, but The Biggest Loser had its day, right? And every trainer started to have an online program, and that market was a little bit flooded. And of course, that market was very centered around weight loss. And I didn't want to be in the weight loss space. I wanted to be in the athletic space. And so I thought, well, I don't want these programs because they're really focused around weight loss. What would I want? And so I created, what did I call it? The Rip It Up Challenge. And I called it the toughest online women's fitness program on the planet. And what I did was I created this programming and then I reached out to some online, I talk about online influencers, but they weren't. These were people that were just in magazines. We're going back, to the early 2000s, mid 2000s. And I would reach out to them. I think it was on Facebook. I don't even really remember how. And I said, would you mind putting this workout to the test and let me know if it really is the toughest workout on the planet? This was before CrossFit. This was before all of the things that we see today. Like CrossFit wasn't even a thing back then. And so I created this workout and it had phases. And I found that with the feedback that was coming back to me, it's like phase one was too difficult for a lot of people. So I had to have like a pre one phase, which is like, let's get them fit enough to be able to achieve level one. And then there was level two and level three. And then I think I had on the program and don't make, force me to create a level four or something like that. And I had this group of women who were athletes. They were so different from the weight loss crowd, right? I remember when I had my Glow Women's Fitness Online, I every Monday morning I would answer all of the spreadsheets. So people would submit every Monday. They would submit their spreadsheet with what they ate and their training and mentally what they were going through, all that stuff. And so Monday morning, my life was hell because I would always have at least 150 people on these programs. And every Monday, I would be going through 150 spreadsheets to give feedback for every client. So Mondays were like my ass was in the chair the entire day. And there were a lot of repeating questions like, I don't like cottage cheese. What can I have instead? Or there was just a lot of the same. And I felt like there was a lot of hand holding that needed to happen. And it frustrated me a little bit. I got bored very, very quickly. Whereas the Rip It Up challenge, it was like, no, you don't, there's no accountability. I'm not hand holding you. It's like, here's the program, here's the nutrition, here's the group. You get to be accountable by posting in the group. And it worked brilliantly. I loved that program. Occasionally, when I'm feeling the need to really dig in and do some training that's going to challenge me, I go back to the Rip It Up challenge. I've got all of the workouts still there. So that business was created off the back of me being frustrated by what was in the market. I was also smart enough to know that the biggest loser trainers have the weight loss market. I need a different market if I'm going to stay in this industry. And so I blue oceaned it. I looked at red ocean is filled with, weight loss people. No one was doing what I was doing. And so that was the business that I created. Another business was my martial arts school. It was a women's only taekwondo school. It was a full-time training center. And we trained traditionally in terms of like there was sparring and there was self-defense. And on the mat, it was martial arts. It was the same as everything else, but the marketing was very, very different. And it was niche. So it was only adult women. Again, it was blue ocean, right? Normal martial arts schools, they teach from freaking embryos to 80-year-olds these days. Like you've got toddlers doing martial arts, which is insane to me. But anyway, it's all big business, right? And I just didn't want to be a part of that. I had moved away. I'd sold my taekwondo school. I moved away and I found a club that I was training at. And I was training, I think, for my fourth degree black belt at the time. And I was doing some daytime classes because I was teaching at nighttime. And so I was training at this other club, and it just happened to be during the day women train. Mostly it was women. There were a few men in there, but a lot of women. And I naturally, in that space, because of my ranking, I was always one of the leaders, and people were always inspired by my training. I'm somebody who was very committed. So I used to fight, and I was always training. And yeah, I just freaking loved it. And my passion was one of those things that was palpable. And so people were very attracted by the passion that I had for training and for training other people. So it wasn't unusual for me. Even back in the day, I remember I I think I can't even remember how it happened. I'd obviously had kids because, or at least one, because I was at playgroup and I was talking to some of the mums and they're like, what are you doing next? And I'm like, oh, I'm running the stairs. So where I used to live, there was a set of stairs that went from the beach up to a cliff. And like, there's a lot of stairs. It was, I don't know how many, I can't remember, but lots and lots of stairs. And they're like, what are you doing? And I'm like, oh, I run the stairs a few times a week. And they're like, can we come? And I'm like, yeah, of course you can, but I'm meeting, it's this time and blah, blah, blah. So I had this merry band of women that came along, and I remember the very first day, it was hilarious. And there was one lady in particular, and she had like a little pink scrunchie and matching socks, and she had lipstick and the whole thing on. And there was all these mums from playgroup, and I was just running the stairs, and they were all just amazed at how fit I was, and they were all throwing up and having to lay down on the ground because they were dying. And I'm like, what is wrong with you people? Anyway, most of them became Taekwondo students. So I've always had this ability to draw people into my passions and get them excited about it. And the thing about martial arts is it is life-changing, especially if you start as an adult woman. And so I was training at this club, and the more I was inspiring others, the more inspired I was. Now, remember, I didn't have a Taekwondo school at the time. I don't know why I was doing daytime classes. I just said I was teaching. So normally that would have happened. And I did continue to train at that club, and I was training in the day because I was teaching at night. But when I first started, yeah, I didn't have a club. Anyway, so I started to form this idea. It's like, oh, I think I want another Taekwondo school. It's like, no, you don't. And it's like, but I think I do. And I decided, you know what, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it differently. I'm going to create what is different to everybody else. And so, yeah, I blue oceaned it. It's like adult women only, full-time center. The marketing is, so our walls were pink and we had black floors and our badges were pink and black. And the women that had their black belts, there was pink uh, like embroidery on the name of for the name of their belt. Excuse me, I got a runny nose. And so it looked very much like it was a marketing exercise, but it was very much a traditional Taekwondo school. And that school was at capacity within 6 months. And I had never taken a taekwondo school to capacity before that. I just knew the market. I knew the women that I wanted to attract. It wasn't me because I had trained with men my whole life and things like that, but I knew who I wanted to attract based on the women that were training. And that club just gave me so much life. It was such an incredible community, and the marketing was brilliant. And the women, I'd always known that the women that I want training the most are the women who are too intimidated by men in the class to train. And so it's like, well, what if I just remove the men and we just have women? And yeah, there were people out there that had opinions about niching. It's like, well, look at all the students that you won't have. And I'm like, I'm smart enough to know that when you niche, people pay attention and the right people show up. And that's exactly what happened. I also had people that were like, oh, well, they're not going to be as skilled or whatever as if there were men in the class. I brought men in to do training exercises and things like that. But those women were tough, but that wasn't even the point of it. It was who they became. And that was the intent that I set from the very beginning. And so if you were going to start a business, think about the frustration that you have with something that is aligned with you and ask yourself, how can I do this differently? How can I do it my way? How can I do it better? And the beauty of something like that is you already know there's a market for it. I mean, I'd known it anyway with Taekwondo schools, right? Because I'd had them for years before. But I knew that there was a market for Taekwondo schools, right? It's like, and now I get to do it my way. Just like my online fitness business. I knew there was a market for online fitness at the time, but it's like now I'm going to create something my way. And so I love to create a business that way. But what you need to do is just make sure that, there is a market for it, right? You have to know there's a market for it. And you've got to know that you're solving a problem. So the problem I was solving with the women's taekwondo school was I'm solving the problem of women who want to train in a martial art but are too scared to train because there are men in the room. And that was a very real problem. That was a very real problem. I knew it was. And I solved that problem and the market came to me because it just stood out like dog's balls, as we say in Australia. It just stood out because no one else had done it. There were clubs that had, ladies' classes or whatever, but it was always, yeah, it was kind of half-assed, right? I wanted to do it properly. And so what I want you to think about is what is your way of something? So, that saying, same, but different. So, martial arts, school, for example, same but different is women's only. And I want you to think about what is a complete and remarkable solution that you can provide. So we don't just want to go, I'm going to have a martial arts school too, and I'm going to make it women's only. Let's just do that. Like, that's okay, but how can you make it a complete and remarkable solution? I wanted it to become a community, and I also wanted them to start together. So, what I did with that school was I created what I called a 4-week absolute beginner program. No one else was doing this. Typically, when you start at a martial arts school, we're going back a lot of years ago, right? If somebody new came to the club, they would usually grab like the highest ranking student, say, can you take the new student down the back and like do whatever, right? And a lot of times people didn't come back because they just felt uncomfortable. So instead of running ads all the time to have people join my school, I ran campaigns where it led to a 4-week program. And that 4-week program was the intake. And I had a separate time slot for it. I taught it, and the students would rock up, and I would say, okay, you're here for 4 weeks, 8 lessons. I'm going to be here for every one of them. I expect you to be too. Typically, when you go to a class like that, they're like, here, have a uniform, and you can have a uniform and feel part of it. I didn't want them to have a uniform until the end of the 4th week. I wanted them to earn that uniform. I wanted them to feel like the uniform was special because it was special to me. And so I also offered an incentive to move them from the beginner program into the main program. And my conversion rate for those students coming into that 4 weeks into the actual program was over 90%. And so they formed these relationships from day one and they moved through this program. They were learning together. It was so good. It filled me with so much joy. And then they would get their uniforms and they were so excited about it. And then they would go into the main program. And so I had to get creative about solving the problems within the problems. And so the problem was not just, women were too intimidated. The women I wanted training, the ones who really needed it, were intimidated by men. That's one problem, right? But then if I'm creating a complete and remarkable solution that is built around community and like sisterhood, and I went back to the days of, when I used to train for competitions and we would have a fight squad and there was only a small group of us and we were training at 5 a.m. every day and freaking fighting to the death and running stairs and all that sort of stuff. That bonded us. So I wanted that same sense of bonding for those women, but without that same mechanism because not everybody wanted to go and fight to the death, right? And so I had to build that in. And so I was solving lots of little problems within the problem because I wanted to create that complete and remarkable solution. Now, a martial arts school is probably not what you want to go out and create, but whatever it is, you can find your way of doing it. And if you're looking at creating something that's born of frustration, then that's, I think, a beautiful thing to do because it's where our passion is. We're so convicted around, you know what, I was disappointed by that. I didn't get what I wanted. It's missing this part. This isn't happening. That isn't happening. And if I want this. So one of the exercises that I used to give my clients when they were launching any business was an exercise where they had to write a journal entry basically being the person. So, for example, I wrote a journal entry for my women's only taekwondo school, and it was like, her name was, I don't know, Karen, and she had kids, and she was this age, and she had this job, and she's journaling, and she's like, you know what? I'm so annoyed. I told my husband I was going to lose weight and I was going to commit to going to the gym. And she said, and now I'm embarrassed because it's been like 3 weeks and I haven't been, and I keep putting weight on, and there's just nothing. I can't find a place to train. I'm not excited about, I don't enjoy the training. Anyway, I can't remember exactly what I wrote, but I just got into this space of it's like, I'm so frustrated and there's nothing for me. And then the journal entry turns to, I just wish. And this is where we create that complete and remarkable solution, right? I just wish I could find somewhere that had a community of women. I just wish I could find a sport that I was excited about. The beautiful thing about martial arts, especially the style that I trained in, is that there's a grading system. So every 3 months, there was a new belt to go for. So we had inbuilt goal achievement, goal setting and goal achievement, and watching people go through the ranks and watching each other support each other. I knew what I wanted to create. I knew what they wanted. I knew what they were frustrated with. I knew what they desired, and I created beyond what they could ever have expected. And so that's the advice that I want to give to you. First, like what is out there in the market that you've experienced, that you're engaging with, or maybe it's even the industry that you're in right now, and maybe it's the way you're doing business right now, and you look left and you look right and you're like, I'm no different to anybody else. I'm just like, everything just feels the same as what everybody else is doing. Well, you got to shake it up. Go and read the book Blue Ocean Strategy. I think that's what it's called. Go and have a look at what are the industry norms? What are people doing that is just the accepted norm? And what can you do that flips that on its head that's different? Most things have been done, right? Most things have been done in the world. People have been opening and running martial arts schools. They've been doing it for, decades and decades before I came along, but nobody thought to do it my way. nobody was doing it my way. And so you have the ability to do that too. Get creative and don't force it. Spend some time really thinking about the industry that you want to be in and dream a little bit. Think about that person that you want to buy the product, that you want to purchase or be engaged with that service. Think about that person and think about what are their frustrations right now? What do they want? And yeah, you can market from a place of fear and pain points and things like that. I've always preferred to market from a place of aspiration. I like to attract people who are drawn to a vision rather than trying to run from something that they fear. I don't like that style of marketing. Yes, it works. Personally, it doesn't work on me and I don't like it. So I like to create something that is so aspirational that people are magnetized to it. And, if that feels like something that you want to do, then do that too. I think that's all I've got to say on it. I could give you dot points and tell you the exact way to, validate your business idea and all the rest of it. But today I really just want to plant the seed that the best ideas often come from a place of our own frustration or seeing people around us frustrated. Actually, I'm going to give you one more. So, when I first launched my very first 12-month mastermind program, there was one person that I knew who was just looping all of the time and stopping and starting and like chasing bright, shiny objects, right? Like most people do. And in my mind, it's like, well, how would I take somebody like that and give them order and sequence so that they can focus on one thing for a full 12 months and see it all the way through? And every time I thought of that person, I thought about how I could develop a program for that person because not everybody it was as scattered as her, but there are plenty of people who started things and then aborted mission because it didn't work fast enough or whatever, right? They changed their mind or whatever. And so that first mastermind was based on number one, myself. I had been jumping around doing a few things and I decided that I wanted to focus on one thing for a full 12 months, and that was my honorable martial arts entrepreneur brand. So I'd launched my women's only Taekwondo school, and I decided that people need to know how to create a niche based martial arts school. And so that's what the honorable martial arts entrepreneur was all about. And I spent a full 12 months in that business. I had many ideas, lots of different ideas that were calling me. And it's like, no, this is the one. And that year taught me everything. It taught me about perseverance. It taught me that, okay, if I don't jump ship and abandon this idea, that means I've got to stick this out. I've got to figure out this bottleneck right here. I've got to figure out how to overcome this current struggle. And it taught me how to figure shit out and get to the other side of it. And actually got to see that on the other side of it, that's where success is often sitting. And so that was the thing that I had achieved, right? And I knew that other people needed that. I knew they needed 1 year of focusing on one thing. Now, that's not to say it couldn't evolve and shift a little bit, but it's like we are not changing our minds every 5 minutes. We are seeing this thing through for an entire month and an entire year, sorry, and that wasn't being done. And for me, I knew that's what people needed. I just knew it. And I looked around me and I saw what was going on. And I'd been part of a program that I think it was 4 months long or 5 months long. Excuse that. Things are going off. I knew, lost my train of thought. God damn it. I'm not going to pause. I'm just going to keep powering through. Yeah, I looked around, I could see what was required, and I knew I wanted to build that. I built that. And because I was passionate about it and I was passionate about my way of doing it, and I was very convicted around we are doing this for a full 12 months, people came on board. They borrowed my belief and they came on board and they were able to achieve things that they were not able to achieve before. So hopefully those examples have given you enough to really plant the seed that you get to go out there and create something different. Like there are things that masterminds had been done, right? There are things that have been done. Martial arts schools had been done. Online fitness had been done. I'd done another version of the online fitness myself previously. But until you really dig in and start to get creative and think about what would be my way, and you don't look at what anybody else is doing, that's when you're going to birth some magic, I promise. All right, that's it. I'll see you next week.